everyone, and welcome to Mr. Porter's very first Algebra 1 video. We're going to be starting off this year talking about solving equations. This is something that shouldn't be new to you. You should have seen this plenty of times in the past, but I think it's good for us to just start with something simple and something you might feel confident in. If you don't feel confident in it, well, this is a good chance to gain that confidence. So for solving equations, it typically revolves around the strategy of using inverse operations. Operations that are the opposite of each other. You know how addition is the opposite of subtraction, going up or going down, and then multiplication is the opposite of division. Some examples of this is, well, if I had 4 plus 7 equals 11, and I have the number 11 now, if I wanted to go backwards, instead of doing plus 7, I could do 11 minus 7, which would give me 4. Same thing for multiplication division. What if I had 6 times 3 equals 18, but then I wanted to go back to 6? Well, instead of times 3, I could do 18 divided by 3, and that equals 6. So this idea of like, hey, if I have a times 3, and then I divide by 3, and it'll just cancel it out, and I can get 6 again, that's what we're going to be doing when we solve these equations. And we're solving something simple, something called a one-step equation, because it only takes one step to solve it. Here's our example right here. Here we have x plus 3 equals 10, and our goal is to solve for x. Now, a lot of you can probably already tell what the answer is by just looking at this, and that's great. But remember, our goal is to develop this certain skill that could be applied to more difficult situations. What if instead of 3, it was like 3,275? That's a pretty big number. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. I see that we have a plus 3 next to x. Our goal is to get x by itself. X equals a number is our final goal. So the opposite of adding is subtracting. So for this plus 3 right here, I'm going to focus on subtracting both sides by 3 because there's a plus 3. I don't care about this 10. I'm not going to subtract by 10. I'm going to subtract by 3 because there's a plus 3. So I'm going to subtract by 3 on the left side, and then I'm going to subtract by 3 on the right side. And what happens is these 3's will cancel out. If I add 3 and then subtract by 3, I'll just get x by itself. So I'll have x equals 10 minus 3 is 7. And that's it. However, I shouldn't have said that's it because there's actually one final step. Let's say you did a lot more complicated of a problem. You're like, am I correct? Can I talk to Mr. Porter and get the answer? There's a way for you to see if the answer's right without any teacher help, and that's called checking your work. And all checking your work is you take the original equation and you take your answer, x equals 7, and you're going to put it into this x so that it becomes a 7. So guys, take a look at what we have now. Is 7 plus 3 equaling 10? Yeah, that sounds good. And there, we're done. Now, I want you guys to get in the habit of checking your work. It's the easiest way to see if your answer is right or wrong. Let's go ahead and do a slightly more complicated problem. Let's do a two-step equation. So here we have something a bit more crazy. 6 equals x over 3 minus 4. Notice how we have this line right here, x over 3. Guys, don't get scared by this. All this means is x divided by 3. It's not, don't worry about fractions too much. I know people aren't a big fan of that, but x over 3 means x divided by 3. And we have a minus 4. So we have two things going on. So we're not going to have one row of this. We're going to have two rows, not just one step, but two steps. But here's the question. What are we going to deal with first here? Do we deal with the divide by 3? Or do we deal with the minus 4? Do you guys remember how PEMDAS worked? PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses first, then exponents, then multiply, divide, then adding and subtract. Hopefully you've heard this before. So some of you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to deal with the dividing first and then the subtraction. No. When you solve, this is for simplifying, when you solve, you typically want to go the other way. We want to deal with this backwards. We want to deal with subtraction and addition first, if possible, dividing and multiplying, then exponents, then parentheses. Now there's exceptions to this, guys, but in general, when nothing looks too complicated, that's what we're going to do. So for the first step, we're going to get rid of this minus 4. So to get rid of the minus 4, the opposite of subtracting 4 is adding 4. And the opposite of divided by 3 is multiplying by 3. So now that we have our strategy, this is always a good idea to have a strategy. Let's go ahead and do this. We're going to add both sides by 4. minus 4 and plus 4, that cancels out. With 6 plus 4, I think you could do that in your head. 6 plus 4 is 10. So 10 equals x over 3. Remember, this is division. The opposite of division is multiplying by 3. Because we know they're inverse operations, don't overthink this right side. It's going to cancel out, and it's going to leave us with x. But let's do 10 times 3 first. 10 times 3 is 30, and that equals x. And that's our answer. And you're probably thinking, is my answer right or wrong? Remember, we can check our work. So let's check our work. Here's the original equation. 6 equals x over 3 minus 4. And all I'm going to do is take this 30 equals x and replace this x with a 30. All right, so what's 30 divided by 3? That's going to be 10. Now, is 6 equal to 10 minus 4? Well, 10 minus 4 is 6. That looks good, and we're absolutely done. And that's all we're doing for the very first lesson, guys. Remember, if there's any questions after you submit your work, make sure you ask me. You either email me, or I think in this case, we're going to be talking about it in class. Otherwise, you guys have a good day. Bye.